We really all need to be aware, especially during the days of these important transits. And there are a significant number of them, from February the 12th all the way to April the 6th. It's practically endless and non-stop. And it's happening at 35 to 36 degrees. All of us are going to get stuck. All of us are going to get stuck with this feeling of hopelessness. That it's like we're trapped. We have no progress. There's no end. We can't see the end. I feel like when the transits are over, starting from June, things will ease up. I really think they'll ease up. Well, let's break down what 35 to 36 consists of. 5-minute break. Okay, let's move on. So the star of this year, you get it, is 35 to 36. That's why I'm analyzing it first. And everything else is important too, of course, naturally. But there's nothing more important than 35 to 36 this year. So now let's go ahead and take a look. I'll start with Neptune. Neptune is in the sector of the 36th hexagram in the last 6th line in exaltation, which means we don't need to consider two possible manifestations of the program. We have a fixed position. First, let's talk about what Neptune is. Neptune is a planet through which streams of neutrinos pass, giving us programming within ourselves and for the year for the population. It gives us programming that is difficult for us to decipher. Classically, as Rauruhu taught, and as it is in astrology, this program is shrouded in veils. You can dig into it until you go crazy, but you'll never get to the core of it. Actually, due to the fact that Neptune makes such a large orbit along the ecliptic, along this fence I mentioned, that we can't really understand it at all. Because we only understand what completes a full orbit during our lifetime. In fact, we understand all the planets up to Uranus. We understand them perfectly because they complete a full orbit during our lifetime. So in a way, we kind of grasp the meaning, the programs they give us. But as for Neptune, how long is its orbit? I think it's 245 years. 245 years is a year for Neptune. So for us, it's kind of shrouded in mystery. Wherever it appears, whatever program it brings, we don't really understand what it's doing there. That's why its slogan is something like, look, you still won't see anything. You'll just get frustrated because you can't see me. So just so you understand, this is a hidden force because the 36th is located in the motor, in the solar plexus. Its power, its strength, its great darkness and great euphoria, and it's invisible. So it's like, this is precisely the moment when we don't quite understand what's glitching deep within us. And that is absolutely Neptune at work. Sorry, not 245, 165 years. 245, that's... Huh? Pluto, right. Yes, Pluto. So what's important to understand? It's important to understand that Neptune stays in one hexagram for 2 years and 7 months. And that means Neptune was in the 36th hexagram of great darkness and crisis, and it's a motor hexagram. Crisis in the motor darkness. And in 2023 in the annual program, and in 2024 in the annual program. And we all can't figure out what the hell is jamming us. Why is 2023 so gray and hopeless? And 2024 is just a total fucking mess. Nothing makes any sense at all. Now everything will become clear. Now all of this will come up through the throat. Everything that's been accumulated, everything that Neptune has been winding up there, spinning around for us. All of it is going to explode for us this year through the 35th. Jupiter lent a hand, said, "You, Neptune, all right, stop hiding, come out into the light, I'll help you." Well, we'll see. This is a direct indication of Neptune's position in the 6th line, the last one, meaning just a little more, and Neptune will leave the 36th gate. It gave us the program and we'll leave. Really well done. What does this indicate? First of all, it indicates that this is humanity's last crisis. There have only been 2 of them in total. Back in 1859, when the full 35 to 36 channel was present, Neptune entered the 36th gate 165 years ago. It also stayed there for 3 years, but the channel was only present for 1 year. At that time, there was a crisis, so to speak, a Neptunian crisis. Something was happening that was unclear, so everything felt somehow like a crisis. And this is humanity's second crisis. And since our program ends in 2027, this crisis should destroy the forms that hinder progress. So, honestly, if you ask me what exactly could be destroyed this year, I can't really say, to be honest. What I believe should be completely destroyed. That's just my opinion. Absolutely all institutions that impose their will on the individual person with their right to live an individual life and make individual decisions. That is to say, I personally believe that all of these kinds of institutions, like the church, which impose a specific morality and code of behavior, and also all such institutions as state institutions, the police, and the military. Military institutions, I guess that's the right way to put it, where monitor people and moreover impose their will. All these active armies that are not professional, that rely on conscription, that's an imposition of will on individuality. Men are told you have to go serve in the army. So my question is, why the hell is that? Well, that's what the state says, that's the law. Well, then let that law be abolished. Let it be destroyed. Again, all these detailed instructions and directives are prescribed to the individual by an external authority. We saw a very clear example of this during the COVID-19 pandemic. That everyone had to go get vaccinated. Why the hell is that? Why do I have to go get vaccinated? Don't I have the right to individual choice? Maybe I want to die from COVID, what's the problem? Screw that, why should I get vaccinated? Again, all of these societal mechanisms, with euthanasia being a prominent example, which are ultimately designed to prohibit the expression of an individual's personal will and autonomy. It truly seems to me that this entire framework of state-sanctioned violence against the individual person, I strongly believe, must inevitably go through a profound and necessary crisis. That's how I see it. I can't say anything about AI. Or what do you call it? AI? Why? Oh, I see. It's because it is entirely artificial. Because, Mikhail, I'm not interested in it at all. Really, it's completely outside the scope of my interests. All this fuss, I don't even read about it. If I understand perfectly well that humanity is coming to an end and nothing works without power plants, and power plants don't work without people either, and all of this will collapse in 2027, why should I be interested in this? That's why, just like that. So, Neptune's position at the moment of the new year, that is, on January 21st at 1913 Universal Time, is in the 6th line, the last line of the hexagram, meaning at the very end of this sector of the sky. And this tells us that in 2025, logically, Neptune will move into a new hexagram. And it will remain there throughout 2025, 2026, and 2027. So Neptune, after a crisis, after some kind of collapse where the old can no longer be restored, connects us and the new will gradually begin to emerge. Neptune connects us through another hexagram, leaving the 36th, linking us to the transition into a new world. Neptune's transition in 2025 into the next hexagram after the crisis speaks to the pivotal nature of our year. This is a slide you may have seen on Facebook. I described our pivotal moment in a specific way. I said that the Titanic will go down. The Titanic will go down. This does not mean that the people on the Titanic will not survive. And we know that on the Titanic, there survived a significant number of people. In percentage terms, not as many as were on board, but 800 people from the Titanic survived and went on with their lives after the catastrophe. And as we know from the movie Titanic, some even lived long and good lives, as shown by the example of the film's heroine. So that's how it is. Yes, that's right. In 2 weeks, on February 10th, the planet Neptune will officially enter the 25th hexagram, where it will remain for the entire duration of the next 3 years. So here it is indeed. Here it is. And this represents the fundamental program of unconditional love for absolutely all that exists. And do you know why the program is giving us love for all that exists? No? For 3 years, right? Maybe it's to prepare our attitude for the birth of the raves, who will seem like this to us. They aren't really like that, but that's how we'll see them, and we need to love them after all. They will be our children. Neptune is moving into the 25th gate. That's wonderful. It's an amazing world. It's an incredible celestial mechanics that drives human history. So let's read the 6th line of the 36th gate in exaltation. All this time I've been talking about the eclipse of light, the serpent, the crisis. These are the 3/6 gates. That's their official name. The hexagram is called the Gate of Crisis. The hexagram is called the Eclipse of Light. And the gloss of the hexagram is the eclipse of light. This is the rule of cycles, that decline is natural. But it's not permanent. It's not a stage that lasts forever. There were birds near that ship that was in distress. The birds are not permanent. It will all come to an end, and everything will end this year. And the line itself sounds like justice, the inevitable survival of righteousness, knowledge, and the accompanying faith that the forces of darkness will ultimately destroy themselves. The phrase is probably from some typical work. We were translating something with Antakada, and we didn't double check with Zena where the quote was from. Those whom the gods wish to destroy, they first drive mad. Maybe it's Shakespeare. It kind of smells like Shakespeare. Does it smell like Shakespeare to you? Maybe Homer. And such is the interpretation of the White Book, the righteousness of a crisis when it arises from pure feelings. Pure feelings are always feelings. Actually, they are conscious feelings. Feelings filtered through time. We had 3 years. 3 years to filter our feelings about everything in the world. To filter our feelings in our attitude toward, basically toward everything that prevents us from living. If your neighbor prevents you from living, keeps banging all the time or something else, you had 3 years to filter it out and this year to express your pure feelings about him. Although in fact it doesn't matter at all. Whether you express it or not, every single person who brought us to this current and difficult crisis and who have led us to the point where humanity, instead of progressing, ended up in a pit. Everyone will be punished, held accountable. It's not me saying this, it's the Rave Year. And the Rave I Ching had no idea that in 2025 there would be a complete channel with Neptune in the 6th line of the 36th gate, and that this fits perfectly with the program of the year. This is a year of punishment for those in power, first and foremost, because everything is structured within the collective. The collective community of humanity is deeply hierarchical. Even though we've been fighting for human rights for 400 years, so to speak, the hierarchy remains. The whites, I don't mean by skin color, but by the amount of money. Those with money are always in power. And the blacks keep paddling, not by skin color, but by the amount of money. They're always somewhere at the level of survival, forced to play the games imposed on them by the state. And above the state stand these whites. All of them will be punished. What's interesting, my God, how interesting this is. You know, yes, in the Rave I Ching, there's a line of madness. There are actually only 2 or 3 of them, I think. Antark and I once looked into how many there really are. There are very few. There are only 2 or 3 lines out of 384 lines. That's it. And one of them literally sounds like a mental patient. I mean, insane. And that's the detriment of the 18th gate. Of the 5th line, guess. Guess you have 3 tries. Which gates and which line does Elon Musk have in his cross? That's right, you guessed it. He has the 5th line of the 18th gate in his cross, in detriment, officially. So this person, if he lives the life of the true self, and Elon Musk, of course, does live the life of the true self, then inevitably his life will end in madness, because that's his genetic program, inevitably. Judging by this year's program, we'll see. There's also another president of a certain country. In this person's genetic program, in their rave chart, and it doesn't even matter what time they were born because their nodes are set, 18.5 is there, yes. Potential for madness. And this is the year of the mad. I don't actually think that in the literal sense of the word, all of our us, I'll just say it, all sorts of leaders of various countries and peoples. It's not like they're officially going to go insane and be locked up in a mental hospital. Well, somehow this year the program will deal with them because they're no longer needed. There are only 2 years left. And it's time for us to start experiencing love for all that exists within ourselves. It's already time to start. And that's why Neptune enters the 25th, but the program still gives us the 36th in the 6th line for a whole year. So that everyone who will interfere with experiencing love for all that exists, so that they all go away somewhere from the places where they can make decisions. Quarantine. For us, for everyone, I put up the next slide. For us ordinary people, in order to ensure that you don't get scared that this is the kind of year with this kind of program. I took this slide from the classic ancient Chinese I Ching regarding the 36th hexagram. And when I read it, I thought, it's written exactly for our times. It's just written for the 6th line of the 36th. And then since I put up this slide a long, long time ago, I was working on the presentation over a period of time, gradually for 2 weeks. So I've had a good amount of time to think about this particular slide. And I came to the conclusion that, well, of course, you see, for the people who subscribe to the 7 chakra system, this information is fundamentally 7 chakra knowledge, of course. Of the 7 chakra people really were aces, masters of survival. They were fundamentally logical, and they were profoundly rational thinkers. And since they were in a constant, unrelenting struggle just to survive, this was due to widespread poor health, tragically short lifespans, and an endless series of devastating challenges like warfare and famine. Wars, endless wars. They had to learn how to survive. Let's read. Sort of like the advice from the ancient Chinese Rave Year regarding the 36th gate. The defeat of the light requires turning to difficult and even thankless work. If you persistently work on what seems boring, you can gain benefit and enlightenment. There is no choice in the matter. It's just that kind of time, a dimming of the light. But just throw yourself into your work, even when your efforts are underestimated. Liberation is near. You shouldn't pay attention to your feelings. It's better to learn to distinguish truth from lies in the darkness. Here's the thing. This idea is perhaps quite clear for people familiar with the 7-chakra system and similar concepts, but it really truly resonated with me on a profound level. This is because, for me, this ancient Chinese interpretation of the hexagram serves as a powerful reminder. It reminds me that no matter what is happening in the world around me, regardless of the external chaos, I have my own life to live. So, let everyone else go crazy. Let the world seemingly fall apart, but I can remain grounded because I have my own life and my own lifeline. And it's definitely about life and a sound mind, not a sick mind. My life, for sure. The only thing is, I must do everything I can to help myself stay on my own line of fractal geometry, where life and well-being are guaranteed to me, no matter what is happening around me. This image of Scylla and Charybdis, which I used for many, many years before, when I was leading Grevenki designs and all that, to show people what it means to live by strategy and authority. This image of Scylla and Charybdis, you know it, right? It's an image from, well, now for sure, from Homer, when he described Odysseus's journey. And Odysseus, well, he went through all sorts of things. And once he had to pass through a strait, there was no other way, where there were shifting rocks. These rocks were somehow mysterious. At certain moments, they would come together. And naturally, if you didn't manage to get through in time, they would crush you flat. And then they would move apart again. It was absolutely impossible to figure out their rhythm, Andriel. But Odysseus managed it. Odysseus managed to get through. He released a dove at the start to see how the rocks would react to movement. Would they come together? Would they not? So, as the dove flew, he watched. Would the rocks close in or not? In short, he figured something out with his brilliant 7-chakra mind, and at some point he said, "By the way, have you seen that amazing American film from 1975, I think, just fantastic, about Odysseus?" With a magnificent actor, a real heartthrob, an insanely handsome guy. So there he is, this insanely handsome guy, and he tells all his fellow heartthrobs, "All right, stay alert, stay alert, stay alert. As soon as I give the signal, row with all your might." And it was honestly moving to tears. He just stood there. Then they rowed, and they understood that if they didn't row well, they'd just be turned into a bloody mess. So they rowed, and they made it out on their golden fleece, or whatever their boat was called, I don't remember. They made it out because at the very last moment, the rock slammed shut, and just a millimeter of their tail managed to slip through. And they were like, they just stood there, stunned. For me, you see, that's an image of living out the strategy of authority, just without all that tension. It's like we're drunk, we always make it through between Scylla and Charybdis, not even noticing that they're doing this, those Scyllas and Charybdises. Life is needed, and life needs its tools, that is, forms that are alive. It's ready to provide them with life. But only if what sits inside these forms of consciousness does not resist. The mind should not control the form, otherwise survival is doomed to fail. The sixth line. The sixth line of the hexagram has no interest in the hexagram it belongs to. Just so you understand. Because the program is completed by the 5th line. And with the 6th line, you need to connect your hexagram to the next hexagram. Because there must always be a transition. There must always be a connection. The purpose of the 6th line is always to connect. The purpose of the 6th line is to transition from one thing to another. That's why the 6th line is tough, cold, tells the truth, because it no longer gives a damn about what's happening inside. It can afford to tell the truth because it no longer cares at all about what's happening inside the hexagram. It doesn't need to be there anymore. And in particular, it tells the truth that everything is ending and we're moving on. So, we're observing a significant shift here, as the initial figure of 36.6 is now moving toward 25.1. And this developing situation is precisely what the crisis program is intended to address, which is in place this year. It's already looking at the end of the crisis and the transition to where, well, as we've already seen with you about February 10th, I showed you the transits into the 25th gate, into the first line, which is described as selfless devotion. Universalization of activity, a mental attunement to what? To the world, which is a reward in itself. This resonance with the world is a reward in itself. The reward is to be in the world. And that's what the first line of the 25th gate is about. And now, the white book sounds interesting. It describes the potential for centering through attunement with challenges. This means that more challenges are guaranteed for us ahead. But we already know about the year 2027 and that all the worst things will happen and be over by 2027. We already know this. But still, thank you for the reminder. And now we look at Jupiter in the 35th gate in the throat, on the other side of the channel. What is the program of Jupiter? It is the second most significant position after the Sun, because in our solar system we receive streams of rinitrin not only from the Sun, but also from Jupiter, and as much as 4%. This is an incredibly important planet. It's the father planet. It's the planet that protects us, because it's almost a star itself. It's enormous. This planet protects us here on Earth, from a huge number of meteorites, from a huge number of comets that get smashed apart by Jupiter's gravitational force. It's the planet of protection. And since it's protection and it's like a father who protects his family, this planet says, hey, what the hell? I'm protecting you here, so to speak, putting myself on the line. So now you listen to me. These are tribal relationships.